The emergency council session was the largest gathering in 50 years. Every species sent representatives. The chamber was packed, floating platforms crowded with delegates who had traveled from across the galaxy. The Station Meridian incident had changed everything. High Chancellor Varothis looked older than his 800 years. His luminescent skin, normally bright with health, had dimmed to a dull glow. He had spent his entire life maintaining galactic peace through careful diplomacy and strict adherence to non-violence protocols. Now that entire philosophy was being questioned. "The council will come to order," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber's acoustic enhancement systems. The crowd quieted, but tension remained thick in the air. "We are here to address the human question. Recent events have made it clear that humanity's integration into galactic society is more complex than initially anticipated. I will hear proposals from all factions." Councillor Reshenix floated forward. The old Voltari had become the unofficial leader of what people were calling the isolationist faction. "The choice is obvious. Humans are too dangerous to integrate. They respond to threats with violence. They refuse to follow established safety protocols. They willingly enter scenarios with extreme fatality rates. This is not civilized behavior." Murmurs of agreement rippled through parts of the chamber. "I propose we quarantine humanity to their solar system until they can demonstrate proper risk assessment and adherence to council safety standards. It may take generations, but eventually they will learn that violence is not the answer to every problem." Councillor Shenri, the young Ethon progressive, stood to respond. She had become the voice of the integrationist faction. "With respect, Councillor Reshenix, I disagree completely. Humanity isn't broken. They don't need to be fixed. They represent something the council desperately needs: courage." The word hung in the air like an accusation. When was the last time any of our species willingly faced danger to help others? When did we last put ourselves at risk for strangers? We build our entire civilization on avoidance and retreat. We have protocols for everything, and every protocol says the same thing: run, hide, survive. Is that really what we want to be? An older Quilarian delegate spoke up, his three arms trembling. "It's what has kept us alive. The galaxy is dangerous. The only rational response to danger is avoidance." "Unless you're human," Shenri countered. "They saved 3,000 civilians at Station Meridian, including my daughter. She was one of the younglings in that education center. According to our protocols, she was acceptable losses. The humans disagreed." The chamber went silent. Shenri continued, her voice thick with emotion. "My daughter is alive because humans don't accept that some people are just acceptable losses. They don't calculate acceptable risk the way we do. They ask different questions. Not, what are the odds of success? But who needs help? That's not primitive thinking. That's moral courage." Ambassador Velthra, speaking for the pragmatist faction, added their voice. "Both perspectives have merit. But we must also be practical. Humanity cannot be contained. They have faster than light travel, advanced weapons, and a population of 12 billion. If we attempt quarantine, they will resist. Do we really want to start a conflict with Deathworlders?" That question resonated. The chamber filled with nervous discussion. Admiral Borum stood in the center speaking area. The human military officer had been silent until now, letting the council debate. His presence was imposing. A tall figure with scars on his face that spoke of violence survived. His dress uniform was decorated with medals, each representing battles fought and won. "High Chancellor, permission to speak?" Varothis nodded. "Please, Admiral. Help us understand your people." Borum's voice was deep and measured. "I've listened to this debate with interest. I understand your concerns. From your perspective, we must seem reckless, violent, primitive. Let me tell you why we are the way we are." He gestured, and the holographic display showed Earth. "This is our home. It's beautiful, isn't it? Blue oceans, green land, white clouds. Looks peaceful. But Earth is a world that spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything on it. Mass extinctions, ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions, plagues that killed half the population, predators that hunted us." The display shifted, showing scenes from human history. Ancient humans with spears facing down mammoths. Medieval cities devastated by disease. Modern cities destroyed by earthquakes and hurricanes. We didn't choose to be survivors. We had to be, or we would have gone extinct like thousands of other species on Earth did. We learned that the universe doesn't care about our comfort or our safety. It just exists, indifferent to whether we live or die. Borum's expression hardened. You've built your civilization on the principle that danger should be avoided. We built ours on the principle that danger is inevitable, so you better be ready to face it. Neither approach is wrong. They're just different responses to different environments. Counselor Reshenix interrupted. But your approach leads to violence and war. Your own history proves that. You nearly destroyed yourselves with weapons of mass destruction. Yes, Borum agreed. We did. We fought terrible wars. Millions died. We built bombs that could crack planets. We stood on the edge of extinction by our own hands. And then we stopped. He paused, letting that sink in. We looked at what we had done and said never again. We chose cooperation over conflict. We developed international laws, peace treaties, shared resources. It took centuries and cost countless lives, but we learned. Being capable of violence doesn't mean choosing violence. Then what is the difference, asked High Chancellor Varothis, between your species and a species that simply avoids violence altogether? The difference, Borum said quietly, is that when violence finds you anyway, you need to know what to do. Station Meridian proved that. The Vectar swarm didn't care about your protocols. It was going to kill those civilians regardless. Someone had to stop it, and your people couldn't. Mine could. A small delegate from a peaceful aquatic species spoke up, her voice filtered through a water-filled helmet. But must the answer always be violence? Can't we find peaceful solutions? We always look for peaceful solutions first, Borum said. But we also recognize that some things in the universe are not interested in peace. Some threats must be faced with force. That's not barbarism. That's reality. Dr. Hanna stood beside Borum. If I may add something, Earth taught us a lesson that your worlds apparently didn't. Life is precious specifically because it's fragile. We value peace because we know the cost of war. We protect others because we know what it's like to need protection. Our history of violence made us value nonviolence. Does that make sense? It did to some. Others still looked unconvinced. The debate continued for hours. The isolationists argued for quarantine, insisting humanity needed centuries to evolve beyond their violent tendencies. The integrationists argued humanity was exactly what the Council needed to survive in an uncertain universe. The pragmatists argued that regardless of philosophy, humanity was here and had to be dealt with realistically. Daehyun sat in the observation area, watching the Council tear itself apart over humanity's fate. Velthra joined him, their three arms folded in a gesture of concern. What do you think will happen? The ambassador asked. I don't know, Daehyun admitted. But I suspect we're about to find out whether the Council is ready to accept that the universe is bigger and more dangerous than their protocols account for. Before Velthra could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Every display lit up with emergency warnings. The debate stopped instantly. An aide rushed to the High Chancellor's platform, speaking urgently. Varothis' already dim skin went almost dark. Council members, the Chancellor said, his voice strained. We have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected an armada approaching from the galactic rim. Unknown configuration. They're not responding to hails. Data filled the displays. Ship counts in the thousands. Energy signatures off the scale. Trajectory aimed directly at Council space. An ancient Kolarian scholar, her three arms shaking with age, spoke in a whisper that the chamber's acoustics picked up. By the void. I know those energy signatures. I've seen them in archaeological records. What are they? Demanded Reshenix. Harkul, the scholar said. The swarm. They nearly destroyed all life in this galaxy 50,000 years ago. They're supposed to be extinct. They're not extinct, said the military analyst, his voice grim. They're very much alive, and they're coming here. The chamber erupted in panic. Species were shouting, delegates were calling for evacuation, and some were already fleeing to their ships. Admiral Borum stood calmly, checking his communicator. High Chancellor, Earth is mobilizing our fleet. We'll be ready in 48 hours. Varothis looked at him with something like despair. Admiral, you don't understand. The Harkul destroyed entire civilizations. They consumed planets. No force has ever stopped them. The only reason any life survived last time was because they mysteriously vanished. Well, Borum said grimly, they're back, and this time they're facing Deathworlders. Maybe that'll make a difference. Daehyun stood, his combat instincts already running calculations. We need to see their capabilities. Send reconnaissance. Reconnaissance into a Harkul armada is suicide, someone protested. The council chamber was a massive sphere filled with floating platforms. Each platform held representatives from different species, arranged in circles that spiraled up toward a central holographic display. The architecture was designed to make everyone feel equal. No one above or below another. Right now, that display showed a rotating image of Earth. Counselor Reshnix floated on his platform, his 4 eyes focused on the human delegation below. The Voltari counselor had lived for 300 years and studied dozens of primitive species. He had seen it all, or so he thought. "This is absurd," he said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless words. "You expect us to believe that your world is classified as Class 9? The data must be corrupted." Ambassador Velthra spoke from their platform, their voice still shaky from the Karath 7 incident. "I have verified the data personally, Counselor. It is accurate. Earth is a Class 9 death world." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many counselors had never heard of a Class 9 world. Those who had thought them uninhabitable. Daehyun stood in the center speaking area, designed for those addressing the full council. He looked small under the sphere of watching aliens, but his posture was relaxed. "If I may, I can explain what Earth is like." "Please," said High Chancellor Varothis from the highest platform. The Lemurian's ancient voice carried weight. "Help us understand." Daehyun gestured and the holographic Earth zoomed in, showing different regions. "Let's start with gravity. Earth's gravity is 1.0 standard. I understand most of your worlds are around 0.6 to 0.7. A Quilarian scientist spoke up. "That's correct. Gravity above 0.8 makes movement difficult and causes long-term bone stress." "We evolved in it," Daehyun said simply. "Our bones are denser, our muscles stronger. We don't notice it because it's normal for us." The display shifted to show Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen content is 21%. "I'm told that's high." Reshnix made a sound like grinding metal. "High, it's dangerous. Oxygen above 15% creates serious fire hazards. How do you not constantly burn?" "We do burn," Dr. Hana said, stepping forward to join Daehyun. "Forest fires are common on Earth. Lightning strikes, volcanic activity, even the sun through glass can start fires. We learned to control fire about 1 million years ago. It's one of our oldest tools." The council chamber went quiet. Controlling fire was considered an advanced technological achievement. Humans had done it before they even had proper language. Hana continued, pulling up images on the display. Earth has extreme weather. Hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can lift entire buildings, blizzards that bury cities under meters of snow, droughts that last years. "And your people survive these?" asked a small furry counselor. "We build shelters. We developed warning systems. We adapt," Hana said. "Sometimes people die, yes, but the species survives." Daehyun took over again. "Then there are the predators." The display filled with images. A tiger, striped and massive, taking down prey. A great white shark breaching the water with a seal in its jaws. A polar bear, larger than any human, standing on its hind legs. These are just a few examples. Earth has thousands of predator species. Some hunt in packs. Some are ambush hunters. Some are strong enough to break bones with their bite. Some are venomous. Counselor Reshnix stared at the images. "And humans, what? Hide from these creatures?" Chief Engineer Taman laughed. It was a harsh sound in the quiet chamber. "Hide? No. We hunt them." "Impossible," Reshnix said flatly. "We've hunted every large predator on Earth to near extinction." Taman continued. "We felt bad about it and created nature preserves to protect them. We became the apex predators about 50,000 years ago and never looked back." Lieutenant Jiwan added, "We also domesticated wolves. You saw the image of wolves, right? Pack hunters with teeth and claws. We turned them into dogs. They live in our homes and play with our children." The council members looked at each other. The concept was beyond their understanding. Taking a predator and making it a companion. "What about diseases?" asked a medical specialist from the Ethon species. "The data shows thousands of pathogenic organisms on Earth." Dr. Hana nodded. "Bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, yes. Our immune systems are very complex because they have to be. We have redundant systems, multiple types of white blood cells, inflammation responses, fever responses. Getting sick is common for us, especially as children." "Children?" The Ethan medic sounded horrified. "Your young get infected?" "It's how our immune systems learn," Hana explained. "Children on Earth get sick, fight it off, and become stronger. It's normal development. That's barbaric, someone whispered. Hana's expression hardened. That's survival. Earth doesn't care about comfort. It tests every generation, and those who can't adapt die. That's how evolution works, Velthra spoke again. Show them the physical tests we conducted. Jiwan stepped into a clear area of the chamber. She was wearing standard station clothing, nothing special. I'm going to demonstrate basic human physical capability. These are things any healthy adult human can do. She started with push-ups. Her arms flexed, lowering her body and pushing it back up. Again and again, smooth and controlled. She did 50 before stopping. Several alien counselors made distressed sounds. The muscle strain required would injure most species. Next, she ran in place, her legs pumping, her breathing steady. She maintained a pace that would be sprinting speed for many species for a full minute. Then she held her breath. The chamber watched in silence as seconds ticked by. 30 seconds. 1 minute. 2 minutes. At 3 minutes, she exhaled and breathed normally again. By the void, someone breathed. 3 minutes without oxygen? Humans can train to hold their breath for over 10 minutes, Jiwan said. We evolved as persistence hunters. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run in heat that would kill most animals because we sweat to cool down. Counselor Reshnix was no longer dismissive. He looked disturbed. You're saying your entire species is built like this? Not just soldiers. Everyone, Daehyun confirmed. Soldiers train more, yes, but any human can learn to fight, to endure, to survive. It's in our biology. The High Chancellor spoke, his ancient voice heavy. This explains the Karath 7 incident. You didn't behave recklessly. You behaved normally for your species. Yes, Daehyun said. Those predators were dangerous by your standards. By ours, they were just large animals. We've faced worse on Earth thousands of times. A young counselor, one of the progressive ethons named Shenri, asked the question many were thinking. What happens when a species like yours develops technology? Space travel? Weapons? The question hung in the air. Taemin answered bluntly. We had global wars. Millions died. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We almost did destroy it several times. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. But we didn't, Daehyun said loudly, cutting through the noise. We learned. We chose cooperation over destruction. We developed ethics and laws and peace. It took time and cost lives, but we did it. Being from a death world doesn't make us monsters. It makes us survivors who understand the value of life because we've seen how easily it can be lost. High Chancellor Varothis raised a hand for silence. The Council must deliberate on this information. Humanity's classification as a death world species changes many things. We need time to consider the implications. As the humans left the chamber, Velthra approached Daehyun privately. Captain, I must ask. The footage from Karath 7 when you faced the Alpha Predator. You roared at it, why? Daehyun smiled slightly. Making yourself look bigger and louder can scare predators. It's basic survival technique on Earth. Sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to convince the other side you're too dangerous to mess with. Velthra's skin rippled with emotion. You didn't just fight to survive. You fought to dominate. No, Daehyun said quietly. We fought to protect our team. There's a difference. Domination is about power. Protection is about responsibility. Humans learned the difference the hard way. He walked away, leaving Velthra to ponder the distinction. In her quarters later, Velthra reviewed the Council's restricted files on humanity. The notes from First Contact spoke of concerning military advancement and potential threat level unknown. The Council had rushed to integrate humans because they feared what might happen if humanity developed independently. Now, Velthra understood the fear, but also, after watching Jiwan's demonstration and hearing Daehyun's words, she understood something else. Deathworlders didn't seek conflict. They had simply learned that the universe was hostile, and the only way to survive was to be stronger than the threats they faced. The question now was whether the galaxy could accept that truth, or whether they would try to cage humanity out of fear. Velthra suspected they would find out soon enough. The alarm cut through Station Meridian like a knife. Red lights flashed in every corridor, and the automated voice repeated the same message in 47 languages. Containment breach. Evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Commander Minho was in the human security office when it started. He pulled up the station schematic on his display. 3 habitat rings showed red, breach points in all 3. His gut clenched when he saw where one of them was. Section 7, the Education Center. Report, he snapped at his team. Vector swarm, said his second-in-command, pulling up the data. Quarantine container failed in the xenobiology research lab. The swarm got into the ventilation system, Minho cursed. Vector were every station administrator's nightmare, insect-like creatures that reproduced every few hours. They ate organic matter and had acidic blood that melted through most materials. Once they got loose, standard protocol was evacuation and sterilization. You didn't fight Vector. You ran and bombed the infected area from space. How many civilians trapped? Minho asked. His second checked the data. 3,000, give or take, including 200 younglings in the education center. Minho was already moving, grabbing his equipment vest. Get everyone to the armory. Full loadout. Sir, the evacuation protocols. I didn't ask about protocols. I gave an order. His team knew better than to argue. Within minutes, all 47 human security personnel were assembled in the armory. Minho pulled up a holographic map of the station. We have 3 infected rings. Thousands of civilians trapped. Station command is ordering full evacuation and sterilization. One of the younger guards, a woman named Yoon, spoke up. They're just going to abandon everyone? Standard procedure, Minho said grimly. Can't risk the swarm spreading. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. That's galactic doctrine. That's bullshit, said another guard. I agree, Minho said. Which is why we're going in. The room went quiet. They all knew what Vector could do. We're going to clear those rings, exterminate the swarm, and get those civilians out. I won't lie to you. This is going to be bad. Vector are dangerous, and there are a lot of them. But we're humans. We've faced worse. Have they, though? A small voice in Minho's head asked. He ignored it. Gear up. Flamethrowers, kinetic weapons, sealed suits. We move in 5 minutes. On the command deck, Overseer Clixrath watched the human activity with confusion. What are they doing? They should be evacuating with everyone else. Her aide checked the monitors. It appears they're preparing for combat, Overseer. Combat? Against a Vector swarm? That's suicide. Open a channel. Minho's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, humans were loading weapons and checking equipment. Commander, what are you doing? Clixrath demanded. Our job, Minho said simply. Your job is to follow station protocols. Evacuate immediately. There are 3,000 people trapped in those rings. We're getting them out. Clixrath's expression would have been pity if her species had that emotion. Commander, I understand you want to help, but Vector swarms cannot be fought. They are an extinction-level threat. We must evacuate and sterilize. I'm sorry, but those people are already dead. They're not dead until they're dead, Minho said, and we're not leaving anyone behind. You'll die for nothing, maybe, but at least we'll die, trying. He cut the connection. The human team moved through the station corridors toward the breach points. They drew stares from evacuating civilians. Aliens pressed against the walls as the humans passed, their faces showing confusion and fear. Dr. Nari met them at the medical station near Ring 7. She had set up an emergency triage area. I'm coming with you. The hell you are, Minho said. You're medical, not combat. And when you start pulling wounded civilians out, who's going to treat them? You? Nari adjusted her medical pack. I'm coming. Minho knew that tone. He nodded. They reached the first breach point. Through the reinforced window, they could see the swarm. Thousands of Vector, each about the size of a human hand with too many legs and mandibles that clicked together like knives. They moved in waves, covering every surface, eating everything organic. Seal checks, Minho ordered. Everyone verified their suits were airtight. Vector blood would eat through regular clothing in seconds. Remember the briefing? They're weak to fire, pressure changes, and kinetic impacts. They evolved on a low-gravity world with thin air. We're heavier, stronger, and tougher. Use that advantage. He activated his flamethrower, a modified maintenance torch that shot a stream of fire 15 feet. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, breach. The door opened and hell poured out. Vector swarmed toward them immediately. Minho fired, and the leading edge of the swarm ignited. The creatures made horrible screeching sounds as they burned. The smell was toxic even through the suit filters. The team moved in formation, overlapping fields of fire. Flamethrowers created walls of death. When the swarms got close, kinetic weapons finished them. The humans had brought simple shotguns loaded with solid slugs. Each blast turned Vector into paste. They fought their way through the corridors, clearing nest after nest. The aliens watching from safe areas couldn't believe what they were seeing. Humans wading through swarms that should have killed them in seconds, burning and shooting and crushing without hesitation. In the education center, they found the younglings huddled together, protected by their teachers. The Vectar hadn't reached them yet, but it was close. The creatures were eating through the reinforced door. "Move them out now," Minho ordered. "Yun, take point. Clear a path to the safe zone." The evacuation was textbook perfect. The humans formed a corridor of fire, and the civilians ran through it. Dr. Nari moved among them, checking for injuries, treating shock. A young Kolarian child, maybe equivalent to a human 6-year-old, stared up at Minho with wide eyes. "You're not scared?" Minho knelt down, his flamethrower still burning Vectar behind him. "I'm terrified, kid. But being scared doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep going anyway." They cleared all 3 rings in 40 minutes. It was brutal, exhausting work. The humans moved like machines, methodical and unstoppable. When one person's flamethrower ran out of fuel, another stepped up. When someone got tired, the team rotated positions. 6 humans were injured. Acid burns mostly, where Vectar blood got through small suit tears. None were fatal. Dr. Nari treated them efficiently. 0 human deaths. 3,000 alien civilians saved, including every single youngling. When Minho made his after-action report to Overseer Clixrath, he kept it brief. "Rings clear. Swarm eliminated. Civilians safe. We'll need to resupply and repair some equipment." Clixrath stared at him. Her species didn't have the facial muscles for most expressions, but her body language screamed disbelief. You did it. You actually did it." "Yes, ma'am." Minho was too tired for lengthy conversation. "But how? Vectar swarms have a 99% fatality rate for armed combat. We're not most species," Minho said. "Is there anything else, Overseer?" "My people need rest." After he left, Clixrath pulled up the helmet camera footage. She watched humans fight through nightmare scenarios without breaking. She saw them protect civilians while surrounded by creatures that could kill them in seconds. She saw their absolute refusal to abandon anyone. The footage was already spreading across the galactic network. Billions of aliens watched in stunned silence as humans did the impossible. The commentary was universal shock. They didn't just survive. They dominated. How can a species be that fearless? They're not fearless. Look at their vitals. Their heart rates are elevated, stress hormones high. They're terrified. They just don't let it stop them. On Earth, the footage played on every news channel. Humanity watched their people save aliens who had been ready to abandon civilians to die. The message was clear. Humans didn't accept impossible. They just changed the definition. In the medical bay, Minho sat with his injured team members. Yun had acid burns on her arm that would scar. She didn't seem to care. "Sir," she said, "the aliens are calling us heroes." Minho shook his head. "We're not heroes. We just did what anyone should do. You don't leave people behind." "They do," Yun pointed out. "Their protocols say so." "Then maybe," Minho said quietly. "They need better protocols." Dr. Nari joined them, carrying medical supplies. "The younglings we saved are asking about you. They want to thank the humans who rescued them." Minho sighed. He was exhausted, covered in sweat and grime, and just wanted to sleep. But those kids had been through trauma. If seeing their rescuers helped them cope, he'd make time. "Okay, let's go." As they walked through the station corridors, aliens stopped and stared. Some made gestures of respect. Others backed away nervously. Minho understood. They had just witnessed what Deathworlders could do when properly motivated. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't civilized. It was brutal and violent and terrifying, but it worked, and that, Minho thought, was the real lesson. The galaxy had built a civilization on avoiding danger, on retreat and evacuation. Humans had built a civilization on facing danger head-on. Neither approach was wrong. But sometimes, when people needed saving, the Deathworlder approach was the only one that worked. The younglings mobbed them with gratitude, their small voices thanking the humans in 40 different languages. Minho smiled despite his exhaustion. Maybe getting called heroes wasn't so bad after all. The landing shuttle touched down on Karath 7 with barely a whisper. Captain Dae-hyun stepped onto the purple grass and breathed in the alien air. It smelled like copper and rain. Behind him, the rest of the human team filed out, checking their equipment and scanning the horizon. Ambassador Velthra floated down from the shuttle on elegant anti-gravity platforms. The Quilarian diplomat's 3 arms gestured gracefully as they spoke. Please follow standard protocols. Stay within the marked safe zone. Do not approach any life forms larger than your hand. If threatened, return immediately to the shuttle. Daehyun nodded but said nothing. He had read the protocols. They seemed excessive for what the aliens called a mildly challenging world. He had trained in jungles on Earth that would make this place look like a park. Dr. Hana knelt beside a cluster of blue flowers, her scanner humming. Fascinating. These plants have a triple helix genetic structure. She reached out to touch one. Doctor, please, Velthra said, their voice tight with concern. Unknown flora can be dangerous. Hana smiled and pulled her hand back. Right, sorry. But Daehyun saw her slip a small sample into her collection kit when the ambassador wasn't looking. Chief Engineer Taemin walked beside Daehyun, his eyes constantly moving. The older man had a habit of assessing every environment for threats. Old military training died hard. Too quiet, he muttered. What? Daehyun asked. The forest. Too quiet. On Earth, forests are loud. Birds, insects, animals. Hear nothing. Daehyun listened. Taemin was right. The silence felt wrong, like the world was holding its breath. The team moved deeper into the forest. The alien scientists stayed in a tight cluster, their movements nervous and precise. The humans spread out naturally, covering more ground. Lieutenant Jiwon brought up the rear, her hand resting casually near her equipment belt. They had been walking for maybe 20 minutes when the smell hit them. Rotten meat and something else, something sharp and bitter. Velthra stopped immediately. We should return to the shuttle. This odor indicates a predator feeding ground. One of the alien scientists, a small creature covered in blue fur, was already backing away. Yes. Protocols demand immediate retreat from predator territories. Daehyun held up a hand. Hold on, let's assess the situation first. Assess? Velthra's voice rose an octave. Captain, there is nothing to assess. Predators are lethal threats. We leave. Before Daehyun could respond, Taemin pointed. Movement. 3 o'clock. They came out of the trees like shadows given form. 6 legs, each ending in curved claws. Bodies covered in dark scales that seemed to drink the light. Heads shaped like wedges, filled with teeth that belonged in nightmares. There were 6 of them, and they moved with the confidence of creatures that had never met prey that fought back. The alien scientists screamed. They turned and ran for the shuttle, their diplomatic composure forgotten in pure panic. Velthra grabbed 2 of them with their 3 arms and began pulling them away. The predators charged. Daehyun didn't run. Neither did his team. They formed a line, instinctively spacing themselves for mutual support. It was something they had drilled 1,000 times in training, muscle memory deeper than thought. Hana behind us. Jiwon left flank. Taemin, right? I've got center, Daehyun said, his voice calm and level. Taemin pulled something from his pack. It looked like a metal rod about 3 feet long, sharpened to a point. He had made it from spare parts on the ship, claiming he liked to tinker. Daehyun suspected the engineer never went anywhere without a weapon. The largest predator, probably the Alpha, went straight for Daehyun. It was fast, covering 30 feet in seconds, but Daehyun had fought hand-to-hand against opponents trying to kill him. He knew how predators moved. He waited until the last possible second, then stepped aside. The creature's momentum carried it past him. He brought his boot down hard on one of its rear legs. Bone cracked. The predator shrieked and spun, slower now, favoring the injured limb. 2 more came at them from the sides. Taemin met his with the metal rod, driving it into the creature's open mouth and out through the back of its skull. The predator collapsed, twitching. Taemin planted his boot on its head and wrenched the rod free, already turning to face the next threat. Jiwon had no weapon except her survival knife. When her predator leaped, she dropped and rolled, the blade flashing upward. It caught the creature across its belly. The predator landed badly, trying to hold its guts inside with its front legs. Daehyun faced the Alpha again. It was more cautious now, circling, looking for an opening. He made himself bigger, spreading his arms wide, and roared. It was a sound humans had used for thousands of years, the sound of a threat, not prey. The Alpha hesitated. That hesitation was fatal. Daehyun rushed forward faster than the injured creature expected. He had his own knife now, and he went for the eyes. The blade sank in deep. The Alpha thrashed, but Daehyun held on, riding the creature down as it died. The remaining 3 predators stopped. They looked at their dead packmates. They looked at the humans who were not running, who were not cowering, who stood ready for more. The predators' body language changed. Their heads lowered, their tails tucked. They ran. Daehyun straightened up, breathing hard but steady. He checked his team. Everyone good? Scratched, Jiwon said, showing a shallow cut on her arm. Nothing serious. Fine, Taemin said, cleaning his rod on the purple grass. Hana was recording everything on her scanner, her eyes bright with excitement. Did you see their reaction time? Incredible. I got the whole thing. From the shuttle, Velthra stared at them. The ambassador's skin had gone pale, a sign of shock in Quilarians. The other alien scientists huddled together, making small distressed sounds. Daehyun walked back toward them, wiping his knife on his pants. Sorry about that. You were saying something about protocols? Velthra could barely speak. You fought them. You killed them. They attacked us, Daehyun said, confused by the ambassador's reaction. What else would we do? Run, hide! Call for evacuation! Velthra's three arms waved frantically. No species confronts apex predators directly. It's suicide, Taemin snorted. Those weren't apex predators. Those were just big animals. Just big. Velthra trailed off, unable to complete the thought. The flight back to the ship was silent. The aliens kept stealing glances at the humans, who sat calmly, discussing the encounter like it had been a minor inconvenience. Hana was already writing notes about the predator's anatomy. Taemin was sharpening his rod. In her private quarters later, Velthra accessed the human delegation's files. There was a section she had skipped before, thinking it irrelevant. It was labeled Homeworld Classification. She opened it. Her blood ran cold as she read the words. Earth, Class 9, Deathworld. Extreme caution advised, Class 9, the highest rating possible. Velthra had never even heard of a Class 9 world producing intelligent life. She looked out her window at the humans' quarters. They were laughing about something, relaxed and unconcerned. What kind of world, Velthra wondered, what kind of hell, produces beings who think fighting apex predators is normal? She sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. They needed to convene immediately. The Council had made a terrible mistake. In their initial assessment of humanity, these weren't just another species seeking to join galactic civilization. These were survivors from a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them, and they had won. The Korvax Nebula was beautiful. Clouds of purple and gold gas stretched for light years, dotted with newborn stars. It was also the last defensive line before the Harkul swarm reached inhabited council space. General Hae Jin stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Indomitable, watching the fleet assemble. 2,000 ships from 47 species filled the space around her. They looked impressive, sleek vessels with elegant curves and powerful energy shields. Her human fleet looked like scrap metal by comparison. 89 ships with angular hulls, ugly armor plating, and weapons that looked primitive. But those weapons worked, and that was what mattered. General, the Council Admirals are requesting a strategy conference, her communications officer said. Put them through. The holographic display filled with alien faces. Some looked confident. Most looked terrified. They were staring at sensor data showing the approaching Harkul armada. Admiral Pelvax, a Quilarian with extensive military experience, spoke first. The numbers are worse than initial reports. 5,000 Harkul vessels, each larger than our biggest battleships. Our fleet is outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Then we need to be smart, Hee-jin said calmly. Smart? Pelvax's three arms waved in distress. General, with respect, there is no smart way to fight this. The Harkul destroyed civilizations. Our best strategy is to delay them while we evacuate vulnerable worlds. You mean run, said another human commander bluntly. Strategic retreat, Pelvax corrected stiffly. We save who we can and regroup. Hee-jin studied the tactical display. The Harkul formation was massive, but there was a structure to it. A central cluster of larger vessels surrounded by thousands of smaller ones. That concentration in the center, that's their command nexus, isn't it? An alien tactical officer confirmed. Yes, the swarm operates through collective consciousness. The nexus coordinates all combat decisions, but it's protected by hundreds of vessels. No attack could penetrate that deep. No conventional attack, Hee-jin agreed. which is why we won't use conventional tactics. Here's what we're going to do. The Council fleet will engage the swarm's outer perimeter, draw their attention, make them commit forces. Meanwhile, the human fleet will strike directly at the Nexus. The alien commander stared at her. That's suicide, Pelvax said flatly. Probably. Heejin agreed. But if we destroy their command structure, the swarm fragments. Without coordination, they're just individual ships that can be defeated. Even if you somehow reach the Nexus, the casualties would be catastrophic. You'd lose most of your fleet. Maybe. But we'd save the galaxy. Heejin looked at each face on the display. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. Sometimes you have to be willing to pay the price. That's a lesson Earth taught us. Admiral Borum, present in the conference, added his support. The General's plan is sound. We'll need the Council fleet to hold the perimeter and keep the swarm occupied. Can you do that? Pelvax hesitated. Every instinct in his species screamed to retreat from this threat. But he thought about Station Meridian, about humans running into death to save civilians. If they could do that, could he do less? We'll hold the line, he said finally. The battle began at dawn, though dawn meant nothing in space. The Council fleet moved first, a coordinated wave of ships engaging the swarm's outer vessels. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. The Harkul responded immediately. Their ships were organic things, grown rather than built, with weapons that fired compressed antimatter. Where Council ships relied on shields, Harkul vessels simply regenerated damage. Daehyun commanded the human strike team, a force of 12 ships loaded with marines and heavy weapons. Their target was the Nexus at the swarm's heart. Getting there meant going through hell. All ships, this is Captain Daehyun. Remember the plan. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't stop for anything. Our job is to reach that Nexus and put it down. Everything else is secondary. Private Kyung sat in the Marine Bay checking his equipment for the 10th time. He was 22 years old and had never seen real combat before. The veterans around him were calm, focused. He tried to match their composure. First battle? Asked the woman next to him. A sergeant named Usul. That obvious? You keep checking your gear. Means you're nervous. That's normal. She patted her rifle. Just remember your training. Stick with your squad. Watch your corners. And if something tries to kill you, kill it first. Simple as that. Simple as that. The Indomitable shook as Harkul weapons impacted their armor. Unlike Council ships, human vessels didn't rely on shields. They used layered armor that could take punishment and keep going. It was primitive but effective. Penetration achieved, reported the navigation officer. We're through their perimeter. Around them, human ships were taking damage. The Resilient lost an engine, limping but still fighting. The Defiant was venting atmosphere but maintaining formation. The humans kept pushing forward. On the Council fleet's side, Admiral Pelvax watched in amazement. The human ships were absorbing hits that would destroy any Council vessel. They just kept moving, firing, bleeding, but never stopping. They're not retreating, his aide said, voice filled with disbelief. No, Pelvax said softly. They're not. Daehyun's strike force reached the Nexus. It was massive, a ship the size of a small moon, covered in organic armor and pulsing with energy. Thousands of smaller Harkul vessels swarmed around it. This is it. All ships attack pattern Omega. Marines prepare for boarding action. The human ships opened fire with everything. Nuclear missiles, kinetic kill vehicles, plasma cannons. They weren't trying to destroy the Nexus from outside. That would be impossible. They were trying to crack it open. The Indomitable rammed through a gap in the Nexus's hull, its armored prow designed for exactly this kind of insanity. The ship shuddered, alarm screaming, but it penetrated the organic structure. Marines, go! Kyung and his squad ran through corridors that looked more like intestines than hallways. The inside of the Harkul Nexus was nightmare fuel. Living walls that tried to grab them. Defender organisms that dropped from the ceiling. Air that was toxic to breathe without filters. They fought through it all. Training took over. Muscle memory guiding actions. When a defender organism lunged at Kyung, he fired without thinking. The creature exploded in acidic blood that ate through part of his armor. He kept moving. Sergeant Isel led them deeper. Command says the central brain is 300 meters ahead. That's our target. Other human teams were converging from different directions. Dr. Nari had developed a weapon specifically for this, a chemical explosive that would disrupt the Nexus's neural network. They just had to get close enough to plant it. The swarm fought back viciously. For every meter the humans advanced, they paid in blood. Kyung saw Marines die, saw good people cut down by creatures that shouldn't exist. But the mission kept moving forward. Daehyun was there when they reached the central chamber, a vast space filled with pulsing organic machinery. The brain of the swarm, he planted the charges personally, setting the timer for 2 minutes. All teams fall back. Double time, they ran. Behind them, the Harkul Nexus realized what was happening and tried to stop them. The walls closed in. Organisms poured from every opening, but nothing could stop humans who had been told to run. Kyung's squad made it to the extraction point with seconds to spare. They dove through the breach, tumbling into the Indomitable's corridors as the ship's engines roared to life. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. The Nexus detonated from within, a flash of light that briefly outshone the nebulous stars. The massive vessel broke apart, organic matter burning in the void, and the Harkul swarm stopped. Without the Nexus coordinating them, the individual ships became confused. They stopped attacking in organized patterns and started fleeing or fighting randomly. The Council fleet, given an opening, pressed the advantage. The battle that followed was brutal but manageable. Without coordination, the Harkul could be defeated. Ship by ship, the Council and human forces drove them back. It took hours, but eventually the swarm was shattered. The cost was heavy. The human fleet had lost 30 ships. Thousands of personnel were dead or wounded. The survivors were exhausted, traumatized, and many carried injuries that would never fully heal. But they had won. General Hyojin stood on the bridge, looking at the casualty reports. 31% losses. By human military standards, that was acceptable for a mission this critical. By galactic standards, it was apocalyptic. High Chancellor Varothis contacted her personally. The ancient Lumerian looked like he had aged another century in a single day. General, I owe you an apology. I called your people barbaric. I said you were too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. I was wrong, Hyojin shook her head. You weren't entirely wrong, Chancellor. We are dangerous. We are capable of terrible violence. But that's not all we are. You've seen us fight. Now you need to see us build. What do you mean? Humans don't just destroy, Chancellor. We create, we protect, we sacrifice. Being from a death world didn't make us monsters. It made us survivors who understand the value of life, because we fought so hard to preserve it. She looked at her fleet, battered but still flying. We didn't come to the stars to conquer. We came to find others who shared the universe with us.